Today we're talking about a legacy game that you can fit in your pocket. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over. Today we're taking a look at Wildtails, a pirate legacy, designed by Dustin Dobson and Milan Zikovic and published by Button Shy Games. Quick disclaimer, this is a legacy game, meaning that new powers and you're going to be modifying cards and changing up different things. And so a lot of the game footage that I would normally include in a review like this, we are not going to have a lot of that just to avoid spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. So yeah, we'll have a little bit, but I don't want to spoil anything for you. So if you are looking forward to playing through this game, don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything. Also, another disclaimer, Button Shy sent me this game to review, so in full transparency, I did get this game from them for that purpose. So let's talk about the game. In Wildtail, players are taking on the role of different crew members, and they're working to build an empire over 9 different chapters of a campaign. Just talking about the campaign in a overview, spoiler-free again, which is harder to do, really. They did a good job with the story, especially for something like this. It is app-driven, and so there will be an app that you log in, you scan a QR code, and then you input your decisions into that app, and that will kind of procedurally generate what threats and what objectives and everything that you need to be focusing on for your next campaign. It will also tell you what things to modify for future games. The story has branching paths. It was a really entertaining story. I really enjoyed that. Actually, a lot more than I was expecting, because it was a lot of times with these legacy games, sometimes I can get myself more drawn into like the mechanics of the game rather than trying to focus on the story. I did that a lot with like Gloomhaven, where I think the story is good in Gloomhaven, but I found myself just more interested in the mechanics, where Wildtails did a good job with making me kind of want to read all the flavor text and kind of dive in and have meaningful decisions outside of the actual gameplay experience to progress the story. So that was fun. Let's talk about the game itself. This is just going to be a high-level overview of what the game is, just so we can utilize this as a base to go forward in our discussion. This is a 1 or 2 player game. If you are playing with 1 player, you do play two-handed, meaning you're simulating a 2-player play. So 1 or 2 player, 2 characters are playing the game, and every turn, the active player is going to be presented with a couple of options. They can interact with the scene card. So this is kind of the active scene. This is what is going on in the Bay of Ratuga at the time, and you can choose one of the options by either gaining resources, spending resources for some benefit, or going against a specific test for like really nice resources. Maybe you're trying to protect the loot, which gets you some wilds and a cannon, which is a unique resource that can be used to manipulate your pirate ship. There's just like a lot of like fun flavor text as well, where you're choosing one of 4 options, and of those 4 options, it's fun to read exactly what you're doing. Another one of your options is you can gain a level on your current objective card. Each player is going to have an objective that they are working on, and once they complete that objective, they can attack the main threat for the victory condition of that specific scenario. And so in order to do this, you have to spend some resources, and you progress on the objective, and based on how far you've progressed determines what current benefits you make it a boost to some of your stats, or a free resource every turn, etc., etc. Or finally, you can attack the threat to either reset their power, or if both players have completed their objective, you can win the scenario. Now, that is enough for us to continue our discussion on the review. If you are interested in learning more about how this is played, I'm going to put a video up here that is not mine, but it is something that I found that was a good explanation of the rules. But I do want to focus this more on just the review of the game. Overarching review of the game, the 9 scenarios took us about 22 plays to complete. And so there's a lot of meat in this little billfold that you got. It's a 9 scenario campaign, 22 plays. The majority of these plays did occur in the last half of the campaign, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But every scenario you basically attempt until you succeed. The average play length of a single scenario was only about 15 minutes, and that was really great. It was really easy to set up, really easy to get to the table, hit it for 15 minutes. We never really ever played one scenario at a time. We found ourselves playing multiple at a time just because of how short that playtime was. It was about 15 minutes, and it does not take up a lot of table space. And so one of the cool things about this, and one of the memories that I have with this, is we took this to Italy, we took this to New York, we traveled with this legacy game, and it was a fun legacy game to pull out and play and just set up really quickly, play a scenario. You can take it to a brewery, to a restaurant while you're waiting for your food, and you can play a game. And that's one of the things that I really liked about this game. It's short, easy to set up. It has a fun story with more branching paths than I actually expected. I also really enjoyed the ramp and player powers, and the ramp and the meta knowledge on how to actually play the game. What I mean by that, player powers I think is a little bit easier to explain, where you unlock new abilities. That's not really a spoiler because there are areas on your sheet that you're playing with where you will place a sticker. I'm not going to tell you what those are, but those were fun. But the meta knowledge in understanding how to play the game took a little bit of understanding, and it was a fun journey to learn. And what that means is how you're interacting with the mechanics in order to optimize your gameplay. So you have a stack of scene cards, and once you deck out, or once you remove all those scene cards, either you gather them as resources, you've used them to run tests against, however that is. Once you finish that deck of scene cards, that ends the round. Game is over after 7 rounds. You lose if you do not complete the scenario in 7 rounds. And then the active threat gets more powerful. They capture a card, making that deck smaller. And what we found, it is critical to make sure that you have as many cards in that discard pile, because that discard pile is what gets shuffled back and set for the deck for the next round. So if you have 7 cards, you have 7 turns in that current round. Now, the acceleration of the game is much faster if you only have 3 cards for that next round. And whenever you have a new round, you're moving your objective card over, and what that does is makes it so that there are more story threats, and every single card has a printed icon that could trigger an effect, and later into the game more of those icons are available to trigger threats. And so figuring out exactly when to spend your resources, and when you spend your resources those cards go back into the discard pile, getting them ready for a reshuffle, was fun and challenging. However, this leads me into what I didn't really like about the game. The scenarios felt like they were really, really easy in the beginning until about halfway through, where the difficulty kind of went through the roof. And that was slightly demoralizing. And I'm not sure if... I actually don't know. I tried to think about this. I don't know if that is the player powers didn't necessarily ramp with the difficulty of the active scenario, or our playstyle did not ramp. Our understanding of the game did not ramp enough. And is that just a us problem? Maybe. Is that we didn't get to learn as much as we should have in the first couple because they were a little bit easier? I don't know. But the latter half of this campaign can be very difficult. Yeah. Of those 22 plays, I don't think we lost in the first 3 scenarios, and I don't know if we lost in the 4th or 5th scenario. I think we started losing around 4 or 5, but then there was a scenario that we actually never finished. We played it I think 5 or 6 times, and we're just gonna say we won this one because we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel to have victory for this. We've tried it with all the different characters, we tried it with different powers, we tried it with different strategies, and we just can't figure it out, so we just kind of skipped that one. So the latter half of this campaign is brutal. We really enjoyed the story, and the gameplay kept us engaged. So we played over 20 times. So I'm not saying that the difficulty of the campaign turned us off of the game at all. It kept us engaged, and we were adamant that we wanted to get through this. And get through this, I think, has a negative connotation. That's not what I meant at all. We wanted to play through this game, and it kept us engaged. It wasn't a game that after 4 scenarios, 4 out of the 9, we're like, nah, never mind. We stuck through it. We had a lot of fun. It held our interest for a lot longer than I was expecting. That being said, it felt demoralizing at some points. So it's cool to learn the game and figure out how to game the system, understand the mechanics, and interact with those mechanics. Learning when to spin cards and how to optimize all of that. That was really interesting. And also, it was fun to talk. I was playing with my wife to talk after a scenario on if we lost, how we're going to approach that differently. Maybe only one of us is going to go for our current objective because our objective is a little bit more difficult. One of the objectives is a little bit more difficult to succeed. And so maybe once we have powered up the other character, it's going to allow the character with the more difficult objective to progress better. And then when you did win, it was very satisfying. Overall, I think that this game is very worth the price tag. I think it retails for around $15. I love how portable it is. You can slip it in a pocket, in a purse, and you can bring it on your travels, and you have a legacy experience in your pocket. It can be difficult to the point of being demoralizing, and so if that's something that's going to frustrate you, then I would just keep that in consideration. But also on the flip side of that coin, if you enjoy a challenge, if you like something that has a story and also some meaty gameplay, interactions, and mechanics, this game could be for you. And so I hope that me rambling about this game helped you understand what this is and understand if it is a game for you. Regardless, if it's not, I would highly recommend checking out Button Shy. I have a couple of their other games, and I've talked about them on this channel before, but I just love the concept of something that can fit in your pocket. So I was really happy with this, and I'm really happy with their other titles. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. If you like this content and you want to follow along, I invite you to do so. And until next time, I will see you around. Peace.